Okay, obviously, as the title says, we are going to be installing a K-bike slipper clutch in the Ducati 916 back there. The whole reason I started this project was because the seals in my clutch cover case were leaking, and that made it so the oil was all up in my dry clutch cover, and it wrecked my clutch plates and everything. It was causing like really weird symptoms. It was causing my clutch to not disengage when I pull it in when it was warm. The lever feel would be really weird, like all sorts of weird issues. But anyway, so today I'm going to be changing the clutch cover out, but I'm also sorry the clutch out, but I'm also replacing my clutch cover because I made a mistake while pulling the old clutch cover off, and I'll show you that in a second. So I have all the parts here, and so these are essentially the parts of the K-bike slipper clutch. Uh, this big thing right here is the clutch bell, and these are the bolts that hold it onto the drive gear. This is the pressure plate itself with the springs and the six fasteners that hold it in there. Uh, this is the slipper mechanism itself. So you can see uh, there's ramps in here, and there are these little steel balls that sit embedded in those little slots right there, and this mates with that, and then um, when so this is essentially the the part where these grooves are where your clutch plates would ride. So the steel plates would ride in these grooves, and then your friction plates ride in the grooves in the clutch bell, and then that's what uh, separates when you actuate the clutch, the pressure plate would lift away from the whole mechanism, and then allow your friction and steel plates to separate and rotate separately, and that's what allows the clutch to disengage the wheel from the engine. And what happens with a slipper clutch is that when the engine side, so this guy's which is the engine side, so I think no, this would be the engine side, is rotating faster than the wheel side, which is the basket. It pushes up on those ramps, and that essentially acts like you're pulling the clutch lever in, and it separates the plate out and lets them spin independently. That's how the slipper clutch works. So these are my old clutch plates, and as you can see here, hopefully this is coming through okay on camera, but these clutch plates are impregnated with oil. You can see the streaks of oil there, and there's basically no way to clean this. I tried a bunch of different things, brake cleaners, like soaking it in isopropyl alcohol, kind of using an abrasive sandpaper or something, take it up, but nothing seems to work. So we'll have to replace, and these are my new clutch plates. We'll get into that too. This is the new clutch cover I bought, but this is my old clutch cover which was on the bike, and when I was extracting I made a mistake. I was trying to, and there's a seal that rides here that I'll show you. When I was trying to pull that seal out, I was using a pry bar, and I kind of misjudged where the tip of the pry bar was, and I ended up scratching this surface. And if you scratch this surface, this forms the sealing surface for one side of the seal. So it is not going to seal anymore. Therefore, I was forced to buy a used clutch cover from eBay. Um, so this obviously still has the seal in it, but I have a replacement seal. We'll be knocking this out and putting the new seal in. I also have the other seal that goes in here. So a seal rides around the shaft. It's a lip type, shaft type seal, and it seals against this. Um, and then the clutch cover obviously goes over all of this. I already replaced this o-ring um, just now when I took stuff off, but yeah, we'll clean all of this up and then put the new clutch in, new clutch cover in. We're gonna have to use some kind of RTV found place gasket, something like that on this edge. Get all that set up and then put the new clutch in. So let's get into it. Okay, first thing I'm going to try to do is get this surface cleaned up and get all the old 3-bond or RTV off of it. Then we'll knock this seal out and try to put the new seal in. Get all this nice and clean. Let's try the mildest things first, right? So I'm just going to use a microfiber cloth and some brake clean and then just go over the surface. From past experience, unless there's like gobs of RTV sitting on your sealing surface, this method works really well. It takes a while, but it's so non-abrasive and safe that I like to just use this if I have the time and the access to do it. If there's big gobs of RTV sitting, then I'll first try with like a plastic razor blade or something non-abrasive like that, and if that doesn't work, then very carefully use like a razor blade. I know there are carbide scrapers out there, like gasket scrapers, and I've been tempted to get one to try it out. I've never used one, but they seem super effective. But you also have to be super careful with them, not scratch up your mating surfaces. I'm just going to go over it with this plastic razor blade. Most of it has already come off. Somebody's pride on it right here. I can see that somebody's been prying on it right here, like right there. They probably did that to get the cover off. So I'm going to go over it with this whetstone. The reason I do that is that this is really flat and it's an abrasive. So I just want to take any high spots off of this, and then when we put the RTV or 3-bond, it'll fill in the low spots and we should be fine. just want to take the high spots off so that um, it doesn't uh, like push up on the sealing surface. Make sure to wipe it off thoroughly. Don't leave any of the metal that came off still on there. And it did very lightly, so there shouldn't be a lot of metal to begin with. Okay, I just gave the whole cover a good rinse with brake clean. Now I'm going to try and knock the seal out. So I'm just going to use a punch and a hammer, which is what I should have done in the first place, and knock this guy out. Before we do that, let me make 100% sure that we have the right seal. Brand new Ducati OEM part. Yeah, it looks perfect. Alright, let's knock this guy out. I just have this, can we see it? Okay, I just have the seal placed in here right now, and I'm trying to figure out a good way to hammer it in. And my trusty plastic hammer here. I'm using the old seal. I just hammered that section flat where I'd used to pry it. Then I'm just going to try to use that to evenly push this seal in. So I think the aim is going to be to make this seal sit flush with the surface here. Still a little bit proud, so I'm going to still tap it in a little more. Okay, I believe the seal is fully seated now. It's basically flush all the way around. It's nice and even, and then I was checking to see the protrusion on the back is even all the way around, and that seems to be the case as well. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Let's drive in the other seal. So once you have all this taken off, this gear should just slide out. Be careful. The washer, put the washer back. I don't believe it's directional. I think it's just a spacer. Alright, that is nice and clean. Seal number 2, again, original Ducati part. I will put the part numbers for all of this in the video description. So very similar seal, lip type. Right. So this one goes this way on. I'm going to try and get a socket that's exactly this diameter and hammer this. Okay, looks like a 36 mm socket fits perfectly. I believe that is all the way seated. Here. One last step to make sure. It's perfectly seated all the way around. Nice and even. Yeah, it should be all set. Our bearing is nice and free. Nothing binding, no weird grinding. Okay, let's put this guy back in. Next I'm going to put this gear back onto the shaft where we took it off from. But before I do that, I actually snipped off the thumb from this glove and I slid it over the shaft that's coming through the gearbox input shaft, just so that I don't damage the seal as I'm putting the gear back in. I'm also going to slightly oil the inside of this, the inside lip of the sleeve, just so it is easy to install. Just a little bit of fresh oil, put it over the seal like that, drop some on here for good measure. Let's slip this guy back onto the shaft. My brilliant plan is not working, but we'll just put enough to keep it clear of the threads. Slip it on. There we go. Now we can take this off. This guy is back where he belongs. Next I'm going to take a second and do the same thing we did with the other mating surface and clean all this off with some brake clean and microfiber. Get this mating surface ready for 3-bond or RTV. Now that is done, you'd have noticed that I took the gear off and I gave it a spray down with some brake cleaner and stuff. That was just to Make sure any dirt and grit that got in as I was working is all removed. Um, just give everything a good wipe down. Make sure there's no dirt in there. Um, the next thing I'm going to do is start putting some. Um, I'm going to start putting the sealant or silicone around, oh sorry, RTV around all of this, um, and get it ready to go back onto the side of the case here. Um, I also want to clean out these holes a little bit, and I went through them and cleaned them out basically, but I might just take a pick and just pick out whatever remaining RTV is in there. So I'm just practicing putting the case cover on, because once I get the silicone, once I get the RTV on here, I don't want to be messing around. There's two reasons for that. One is I will have limited amount of time to do it, and two is once you get the silicone on, you don't want to smear it around. You want to be able to just get it directly on there. So there's a dowel pin here. We'll have to seat that dowel pin when we're actually getting the case on. The stuff I'm going to be using is Toyota Seal packing, or what they call FIPG, and I'm just going to be running a thin bead all around and around all these screw holes as well, and I'm going to and this stuff gets absolutely everywhere, so you want to be prepared with a bunch of blue towels and try and keep it off your hands. This stuff is nasty and it'll absolutely go everywhere. So I'm going to just make a thin bead of this around. Okay, I have a bead around the entire perimeter and all the way around all the bolt holes. Um, some of it may be a little bit more than I wanted to, but it's not too terrible. So I'm going to give this surface final wipe down with brake clean, just because there's been oil and stuff all around. Um, so we have this seal on, we have the o-ring on. I don't think we need to do anything else here. Go ahead and put this on. Okay, everything's seated. The seal is nice and even, it's not folding up or rolling up anywhere. uh, just going to use the mallet and tap this in so that it sits home. This quick drawing of where all the screws go, because a lot of them are different lengths, and obviously this one has this wire holding clamp and a washer that goes with it. So I'm quickly going to just put them all in and just make them finger tight. The remainder of the missing screws will go in with the outer clutch cover. The instructions for this particular form and place gasket or RTV are to wait finger tight and then wait 15 minutes for it to set before you torque everything down to spec. It has been just about 15 minutes. The torque spec for these is 9 Newton meters, and I'm going to just start these down right now. All the bolts are torqued, and looking at our form in place gasket, there's just a little squeezing out from all the edges, which is perfect, and it looks like there's a seam all the way around, and that should form a really good oil seal. So we should be all set with that. Moving on now onto the actual clutch install. So next thing that's going to go in is the clutch basket. 2, 4, 6, 8 of these screws. These need to get thread locker on them and be bolted in here. So I'm going to start applying some thread lock to all of these. K-Bike insists that all these bolts be new, that you don't reuse these bolts. The torque spec on these is 32 newton meters. These are these are to be tightened in a diagonal cross pattern. So I'm gonna have to install the clutch holding tool for this. This is just a small amount of torque, so just the one bolt should do. Everything's torque to spec. Next, in goes the spacer. Make sure the O-ring is on the inside. Um, this is really important. And then the O-ring side goes into the towards the engine side, and this should seal with the lip there. And then next goes the bevel washer. Again, this is a really important step. The bevel is peaked, so the washer is like that. If you look at it sideways, it's peaked like that, and the peak side goes towards the engine. That's it over that. Next thing we're going to do is lubricate all these grooves with some grease, and then put these steel balls into those grooves, and they're going to ride on that. I'm going to be using silicone paste because it's high temperature grease and it's really stable. So you want to make sure there's enough grease in here, but not too much, because any excessive grease you put in here is just going to fling and it's going to go all over the place. And you really don't want grease in your dry clutch. I'm just placing these balls into the grooves where they ride. I'm also going to slightly lubricate the other side of the ramps. I'm not going to put anywhere near as much grease here as I did in those ramps. In fact, I'll steal some of that grease and just put it on here. Again, you don't want too much grease here, just enough to lubricate it. Now I'm going to put the clutch hub into the clutch basket. Now K-bike instructions say that you need to install this with a rubber mallet. In my experience, it just goes on without any need for malleting. But your experience may vary. Be careful not to lose your balls here. Next I'm going to place the clutch hub in here. And that should trap the steel balls where they need to be. The next thing that needs to go in is the spider spring, and you can see, because my clutch is slightly used, where the spider spring has worn grooves into the clutch hub here a little bit. I'm going to put just a tiniest touch of grease on all these grooves and the back of the spider spring just to lubricate it. Again, I'm using extremely small quantity here, just a smear, really. Again, the spider spring has some lettering on it, but even if it doesn't, you can see it has some curvature, and the peak is away from the engine, so towards you. So it should go in like that. Next, the clutch hub nut has to go on. This again needs to have thread locker on it. This is a 32 millimeter nut. I'm gonna get it on there as much as I can with my hand. And now I am spinning my engine. So at this point I need to install the clutch hub tool, and this time I'll need to install it properly because, well, I'm going to be putting a lot of torque in it, so I'm going to need at least 2 bolts to go in all the way. So we need to figure out how we do that. Okay, I have full thread engagement on both of these, so the clutch up tool is mounted securely. Now I'm going to torque this big guy down. So the torque spec on this is 185 Newton meters. I'm just going to take this big cotton swab, put some brake clean on it, and make 100% sure there's no grease where I don't need it to be. The face at the back there, one of the friction plates is going to sit right on it. One side of a friction plate is going to sit right on it. And I know we've been playing with grease and oil and all that stuff, so I'm just going to make absolutely 100% sure there is nothing there that I don't want there to be. Steel discs need to get thoroughly cleaned out because they come with protective oil so that they don't rust while they're in transit. So they're all greasy and oily, so we're gonna have to brake clean all of this. Okay, these are all free of oil now, and I'm going to organize the stack. So the way the stack organizes is your friction plate goes in first, right at the bottom, and then you have to put in the tapered plate, or the one that has a peak, and you have to figure out which side the peak is at. The way you tell that this plate is the one that is tapered is it has a, in this case it has a B. In the manual it says it'll either have a G or a B or a little dot in one of the teeth. In this case it seems to be a B. It was also a B on my other set. I'm assuming if you buy the new friend kit, they all come with a B. Try to figure out which side the peak is. Just trying to grab it. So the peak is very subtle. So the side with the B has to face. The side with the B has to face outwards. Looks like. So I'm just putting it against a flat edge of this ruler. This ruler / spirit level, and then looking at it from the side, I can see that it peaks towards the front there. So B facing towards the outside. Let's put this guy in. Now we just alternate friction and pressure plates. Friction and steel plates, I mean. So I have 2 steel plates remaining, and they're just gonna go on the end. Just like that. And next we'll put the pressure plate on. Make sure you push the spring down and you don't have any tension against the nut when you're getting the thread started, to make sure you're not cross threading it. So use this spring cap to push it down like that, and then get the nut started. When you have resistance like that, it's really easy to get stuff cross threaded. All the time. Okay, all of them are touched down. I'm gonna grab the torque wrench and torque all these down to spec. The spec is like 7 Newton meters, so essentially it's just like very small amount of torque. These are just holding your springs in. The springs are what are applying the pressure. I suspect we'll have to take these off again because we have to set the stack height. Okay, everything's torqued down. I'm gonna grab my calipers and take a measurement of the stack depth, stack height. So the idea is to measure from like this machine surface here on top of the pressure plate down to the clutch hub, and it has to be between 6 and 7.5 millimeters. So let's try and take a measurement. So it's 8.75. Let me grab another one at another point. Here we're getting 7.2. I'm getting 9 mm, 1.1. So we're definitely over. I'm getting like 8 to 9 mm measurements at most of the points. So I'm going to take this off and add a couple of steel plates. So if you only bought this kit and you don't have any additional steel plates, it's totally okay to use the ones from your stock clutch. It should be the exact same thing. I got my fingers off. That's just one I take. I think that's all. Okay. Let's close it something half. So in 9 seconds. I think it should be about this. Let's see how it goes. Oh, this one. This is not the other one. Actually, I'm going to insert the clutch rod from the other side just to make sure if there is any pressure that needs to be applied from that side to balance out the spring pressure that it's actually there. Didn't think of that the last time. So I have the push rod here and I have these O-rings that I was going to replace. So let's just do that really quick. Fresh O-rings installed. Let's put this rod in. So the O-rings face towards the clutch actuator side. That should be it. Let's pull this guy down. I'm just going to leave this hand tight for now. We'll come back and torque these to spec before we actually run the vehicle. Let's grab another height measurement. So this went in the wrong direction. So we got 11 mm, 10 mm, something like that. So we're gonna take it back off and take a couple of plates out. Okay, You didn't miss anything. I just took um, the one extra plate off the end, and now all the measurements are correct. 7.3, 6.9, 7.01, 7.2. So between 6 and 7.5. So most are close to 7. So the install is basically done. Um, so I'm going to leave this cover off for now, just because I want to get everything put together, start the bike, and make sure there isn't any oil leaking for any reason. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and put all the rest of the bike back together, get some oil in it, um, do all that good stuff, um, and get it ready to run. So um, I'll see you when we are back ready, when the bike is back to running. Okay, so I have all the rest of the bike back together. Um, Looking at the instructions in the insert that came with the clutch plates, it says to start the bike, warm it up, and then go through all the gears while the bike is stationary first, as a part of breaking in the clutch plates. Also, once that is done, to go in slow or medium speed, and then kind of just go through all the gears a couple of times before actually getting out on the road. So I'm going to start the bike now, and we're going to go through that process. As you saw, I ran through all the gears. I kind of let the clutch in and out in a couple of gears a couple of times. So now I'm going to just throw some gear on and then just take it on a small ride around the block and try and go through all the gears at like low speed, making sure the clutch is engaging and disengaging properly. So far from what I can tell, it's working fine, but the true test is obviously going to be on the road. I'm going to do that before I put the panels on and all that stuff, but I'm just going to make it do the minimum possible to make it safe to be on a ride around the block. I'll be back in a second. Okay, bike is sitting out there warming up. Let's go on a ride.